So I would say that most of Manhattan has decent access to subway stations. I would say most, but at the same time, not all New York City neighborhoods have great access to subway transportation. So in this video, I'm going to focus specifically on Manhattan, because if I get into the other boroughs, that would be a whole nother nightmare situation, because there's so many neighborhoods that are not fully accessed by subways in all the other 4 boroughs. But if we're focusing just on Manhattan, I would say that most of them do have good subway coverage. Now, there are a few outliers here, and I'm going to go over them in this video. So I'm first going to start off with Upper Manhattan as a whole. So Manhattan is made up of downtown, midtown, uptown, and then you have Upper Manhattan. Well, actually, uptown is also Upper East Side, Upper West Side, Harlem, and then you have uptown, so above Harlem. If you break it down, because this is also kind of incorporating Harlem as well, so anything above 110th Street, I would say, is not serviced properly, to be honest. You do have some subways that run through 125th, but if you're going north of that, north of 125th is like, it could be a nightmare. And honestly, if you do live over there, I do feel bad because it's just completely underserviced. I guess where this is coming from is that the intention of trains originally is really for people to be able to get in and around New York City to work, right? So it really caters to commuters. And the problem here is that a lot of people aren't commuting to Upper Manhattan for work. There aren't really a lot of like office buildings in that area. They do exist, of course, but at the same time, compared to other parts of Manhattan, they're not even close to the amount that are in the rest of Manhattan. But still, honestly, especially from a real estate agent perspective, nothing irritates me more when I feel like a neighborhood is underserviced from trains, because I think that it really does affect property values, to be honest, in a neighborhood. Why wouldn't it? Just because it's hard to get to. And then people don't want to live in that neighborhood because they feel like they can't get to other neighborhoods in New York City easily, and then they're not going to be able to get to work if they have to work in person. So that is something that, a little bit of a real estate rant, that is something that frustrates me with New York City. But at the same time, I guess with more people being able to work from home, that the playing field is a little bit more even. However, it's never going to be completely even in my book. So as I was saying, if you look at central Harlem around 125th, that's really the only area that's going to be completely serviced above 110th Street. Other than that, there's just not enough subway transportation in that area. You're going to be relying heavily on buses. So Alphabet City, or also known as ABC Village, in the East Village. So that's also an area that's completely underserviced by trains. So ABC Village is part of the East Village. However, it's the part of the East Village that is all the way east. And everybody knows in Manhattan that if you go all the way east or all the way west, you're going to have less train options because all of the subways tend to be a little bit more centralized in Manhattan. So any all the way east side neighborhood or any all the way west side neighborhood is going to have to come in to catch a train. Alphabet City in the East Village is definitely pushed all the way east. So you have to walk in pretty much to the East Village to catch a train. So whenever I'm doing showings in that neighborhood, that's always a complaint I hear from people who are either moving to the neighborhood or people who live in the neighborhood, that it's just not convenient to get a train, depending on where you live in Alphabet City, but you're going to have to do some walking into the East Village. So another neighborhood that is also underserviced by trains is the Lower East Side, depending on where you are. So the Lower East Side does have some trains that are not as common through other parts of the city, like the FJ, but at the same time, if you're living all the way east in the Lower East Side, just like with Alphabet City in the East Village, it's kind of like the same scenario here. You're definitely going to be far away from the subways. You're going to have to walk in to catch a train. And then also, depending on where you are in the Lower East Side, it might not even be a mainline train, so you might have to do a transfer, depending on where you're going. If you live in the Lower East Side, depending on where you live, be prepared, because if you're trying to commute to another area of Manhattan, you might have to do a transfer. That's just something to be aware of in the Lower East Side. Overall, on the East Side, they could definitely do better with train services. So another neighborhood that has literally no trains, actually, is Battery Park City. I actually live in Battery Park City, and I do love the neighborhood. However, there is not a single subway train in sight. You will not find a train in Battery Park City. There is no subways that go to this neighborhood. So what do? Battery Park City is the only neighborhood that is to the west of the West Side Highway. So you literally have to cross the highway to get to the neighborhood. Because of that, there's no trains that go there, because one of the trains would have to do a curve to Battery Park City and go back up. So that's the only way that you would be able to have a train in Battery Park City, which happens in a lot of neighborhoods. But what you can do in Battery Park City is you can cross the highway and go into the financial district and catch a train there. Or if you're in North Battery Park City, you could cross the highway and go into Tribeca. So that's an option. Battery Park City is on the Brookfield Place side, and Brookfield Place is a mall that connects to World Trade Center. So if you walk in through Brookfield Place, go underground, you can get to the World Trade Center and catch the subways there as well, because there's a lot of the main subway lines go through the World Trade Center. Those are going to be your best bet. There are options, and you can walk to subways from anywhere in Battery Park City. So it's not like you have to walk like 15 plus minutes to get to a subway. I mean, in some parts of the neighborhood, you have to walk like 10 minutes, which some people don't like. And honestly, that's probably the one reason why people choose not to live in Battery Park City. If they're relying on the subways every day, it's definitely not a convenient neighborhood for you. Now, I work and live in Battery Park City, so I don't have to rely on subways every day to get to my office. Now, if I did, I definitely think that I would have a different opinion on Battery Park City. It might not be the most convenient neighborhood for me, but it's crazy that there's literally not one subway station here. It definitely affects people's choice on the neighborhood, I would say. And the last neighborhood that was underserviced by the subway stations, I would say, was the Upper East Side. But recently, that's kind of been solved, especially with the addition of the Q line in the Upper East Side over the past like 5-7 years now. So when you take the subway in the Upper East Side now, you still notice that the trains can be absolutely packed because there are just so many people that have to rely on the same trains there. Whenever you see that, it's probably because they're a little bit underserviced. A couple more trains could go through the neighborhood. However, it's always a logistical issue as well with New York City. You have to figure out which trains can service that area. They did solve it a little bit with extending the Q line in the Upper East Side, but that's really the only change that has been made in the past 10 years. But at the same time, it did make a big difference. At least I thought so from pre-Q line extension. Those are the 5 neighborhoods in Manhattan that are probably the most underserviced when it comes to subway trains. Now, I want you guys to know this because if you're ever thinking of moving to one of these neighborhoods, it's definitely something that you should be aware of. There might be something I've missed in this video, or maybe you in a particular neighborhood, based off where you actually live, feel like that part of the neighborhood is underserviced. I would love to hear from you guys because I really think that you guys sharing your stories will really help other people in the community, because that's how people learn about New York City. It's just really learning from other people. So as always, I love hearing from you guys.